You're listening to Too Much on Her Plate, the podcast for smart, busy women who are tired of running on the hamster wheel and are ready to create freedom from overeating and emotional eating. I'm your host, clinical psychologist, author, and a smart, busy woman too, Dr. Melissa McCreary. Today, I'm inviting you inside a 3-part series that I taught all about how to use psychology to stop overeating. If you want to stop overeating or emotional eating, or if you want to change your weight, then your brain is your most valuable asset. If you're tired of worrying about food or your weight or what to eat, if you're motivated and ready to make a change, but you know that what you've been trying to do doesn't work, and honestly, you don't know another way, or if you've heard about how psychology, mindset, and your emotional relationship with food might be driving your overeating, but you don't know how to apply these things in a helpful way, then you're going to want to catch the next 3 podcast episodes. These are the 3 parts of the series that I am sharing with you, where I'll help you wrap your brain around what doing it differently, what that looks like. You're about to hear part 1 of the series. So if you're ready, let's do this. I have been having a lot of conversations with people. I always have a lot of conversations with people about what it takes to stop overeating and why people get stuck and what to do about emotional eating. And one of the things that I do a lot in my programs and in my coaching with clients is focus on the pieces that get left out of what I think of the puzzle that needs to be solved if you want to leave this stuff behind, really solve it. And the biggest piece of that has to do with your brain and your thoughts and your beliefs about what is possible, and your thoughts and your beliefs about food, and your thoughts and beliefs about weight and the scale and a million other things. The biggest source of power that people have when it comes to making changes, particularly with changes that have to do with habits that maybe you've had for a while or habits that you've struggled with, your most powerful asset is your brain and understanding how to use psychology to make changes. So that is why I decided to do this pop-up series. Most of you know me and are familiar with me. I noticed that there were some people who had signed up for the series that this looked like their first introduction to me. So let me really briefly tell you who the heck I am. I'm Dr. Melissa McCreary. I'm a clinical psychologist. I have worked with food and women and overeating and eating and weight and every way you can probably tangle that up for my entire career. And I am passionate about helping women not have to work with that stuff anymore, not just have mastery over it or feel like you found something that's working for now, but to really make changes that last, that you feel confident with, that feel comfortable for you, so that you can leave this stuff behind and put your time and energy into things that are more fruitful for you, right? Because people just get caught in these loops where this is what they're thinking about and focusing on. And I have so many clients tell me that if they could just wake up in the morning and not have this be their first thought or one of the first things they think about or judge themselves on, they would be so happy. So that's what we're going to talk about. Today, I want to cover 2 things. Today, we're going to talk about peace with food and freedom from overeating. And I just want to really briefly talk about what that is, because it sounds like a lot of fancy words sometimes, or it just sounds, it sounds good, but what does that really mean? So what the difference is between peace with food and freedom from overeating and diet mentality. So we're going to talk about that. And then I want to give you what I think of as the 4 main obstacles that get between smart women who are working really hard to make these changes, get between them and their success. I'm going to tell you what the obstacles are, and I'm going to tell you what it looks like to do it differently. If you follow me, you know I talk a lot about peace with food and freedom from overeating. And those are actually, peace and freedom are the words that I hear from people in the Missing Peace program, people that I coach privately. Those are the 2 words that come up all the time when I ask people what they want: peace and freedom. It's really important to pay attention to that if those words resonate in your body, if those are things that you want, because part of what we're going to be talking about in this series is how traditional approaches, most of which fall under the rubric of diet mentality and getting you to think in a certain way, they don't lead you anywhere toward peace with food and freedom from overeating. And knowing this difference is really important. It's really important when you choose your approach. And it's also going to be really important when you are wanting to stay motivated with whatever it is that you are trying to do to make changes. Diet mentality, diet thinking, focusing on how you will change your food and how you will eat and how much to eat and how many points and what you need to do next to, to play around with the food to make it work for you. It doesn't create peace. It does not create peace with food. It does not create peace. It creates a set of rules that come from outside of you that if you're going to be successful, you have to maintain. it actually creates more pressure and expectation. It teaches you, diet culture and diet mentality teach you to submit to a process. So what happens in the traditional world of weight loss and controlling your eating, and control is a big part of it, is that somebody tells you, or you decide that you are going to adopt a way of eating that somebody said would work or that worked for somebody else. And then you're supposed to fit yourself into it. You're supposed to twist yourself up like a pretzel to make it work for you. And then if it doesn't work, it's your fault. You didn't twist enough. You weren't flexible enough. You couldn't fit into that. It is not empowering, diet mentality. Peace, think about the words peace and freedom. Peace and freedom come from a place of empowerment. Peace and freedom come from a place of not having to hold on, not having to stay in control, but having something that frees you so that you're not connected to this struggle anymore. So when you start with diet mentality, you start with a food plan, usually. You're going to eat a certain way, or you're going to not eat a certain way, but it's about the food, right? You start with a food plan. You're going to see this when we get into these 4 obstacles today. A food plan does not solve the problem of overeating. A food plan might control your eating for as long as you can stick with the food plan, but it does not solve the problem. So the example that came to mind, and I'm sure there are better ones, and if you have one, just type it into the chat. But the example that came to mind was my son had a plumbing problem recently, and I was thinking about that. So I was like, imagine you have a pipe that is leaking in your house. And you are not a plumber and you don't have a lot of tools, right? You have this pipe that is leaking and you do not want to get water everywhere. You want to contain the mess, or you want to stop the mess, right? So you can maybe get some rags or some duct tape or something, and you can wrap it around the pipe and hope that it lasts for a while. Or you can stick a bucket under the pipe to catch the water that's leaking. And in a way, you have solved your problem. You don't have water gushing all over your house or ruining your wood floors or whatever it is that you're concerned about. But you haven't solved your problem at all. You haven't fixed the problem. Until you fix the pipe, you are always going to have to be vigilant about the leak. You are always going to be having to check to see if the bucket needs emptying, or the rags have soaked through, or the duct tape is coming off, or you are always going to have this thing front of mind, because it is a problem waiting to become a bigger problem. That is what diet mentality is about. Diet mentality gives you this way to manage a leak, a problem, something that really isn't working ideally for you. But as long as you're doing it that way, you have to keep managing it forever. Or what happens for most people is we think we can manage it forever. We can't, because we're human beings. And so you end up in this cycle of managing it and not managing it, and managing and not managing it. Maybe sometimes you stop paying attention to the pipe and the leak gets worse. So now you have a bigger leak, you have a bigger problem, which is like when you stop paying attention to your eating, or you get overwhelmed, or you have a big binge because the plan didn't work. And then, you now weigh 5 pounds more than you did before you started. That is the trap and the path of diet mentality, because you can never get it perfect. Peace with food and freedom from overeating, and we're going to talk about this more in the second session. You're not always worrying about the leaky pipe anymore, because peace with food and freedom from overeating are only possible when you fix the leak, right? Okay, so if there's a better metaphor, I can use that next time, but I hope is that making sense to people? So that's the difference. The way that you start to fix the leak it starts with shifting your whole perspective. Because if you're stuck in diet mentality, you're thinking about, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to eat? What do I need to count? What do I need to cut back on? You're not really focused on fixing the leaky pipe, right? That's where starting to use your brain comes in. That's where starting to use psychology comes in. Because when you learn to see your overeating from a new perspective, it shifts everything. And it can get bigger than that, because we also have all sorts of beliefs and ideas and thoughts that we carry around about who we need to be able to change, or what is possible for us. If you've ever thought for yourself to yourself, food is always going to be an issue for me. I'm always going to struggle with this. Sugar is always going to be a problem for me. Those are thoughts that keep you stuck in diet mentality, thoughts that keep you stuck in a battle with food. So learning how to use psychology and learning how to think differently about the problem and about yourself gives you a source of power that is impossible to even describe to you until you start to take that power back. Diet mentality keeps you disconnected from your power. Diet mentality is about telling you, try this, do this. Why aren't you strong? Be stronger, right? Don't give in to stress eating. Just be strong, be powerful. But it's not empowering. You're trying to be that pretzel, trying to follow someone else's plan. Peace with food and freedom from overeating come when you find your power. The thing I love about freedom from overeating and peace with food is that it lets you move on. You don't have to keep coming back to this. You don't have to keep starting over again, or realizing, oh, I stopped paying attention and the scale went up, or my pants don't fit, or what happened, or oh, I've been eating too much again. I know a lot of women who are really passionate and ready to make these changes with their eating. They are really tired of struggling. They really like the idea of peace and freedom. And they are people who have done tremendous things in their life and know how to get crap done. And they can't figure out why they're stuck in this one area. In fact, that's a sentence I hear a lot from people who join Your Missing Piece or people who work with me, is like, why can I not do this one thing? And they'll tell me all these other amazing things that they've done. And here's what I want to start this series by telling you why, and how to move into the other formula instead of the formula that isn't working. A quote that I was thinking of this morning, I was going over my notes, and there's a quote by Abraham Lincoln that you're probably familiar with. He says, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." Let me say that again. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. That is what happens when you start being strategic with your brain, when you start using psychology, and when you start taking the time, and it will feel, I'm going to tell you, brains do not like to change the way they think about things. But when you start investing the time to change your thinking and to change your approach to food and weight and overeating and binging and emotional eating and eating at night and stress eating and boredom eating and comfort eating and mindless eating and all that stuff, that's you sharpening your axe and making that shift out of diet mentality into a freedom mentality can feel uncomfortable and slow at first. But I want you to remember, it is because you are spending those important hours sharpening your axe. And when your axe is sharp, you're going to cut down that tree faster than anybody else. So the 4 obstacles that get between smart women and their goal when they're trying to change their eating. The first one is focusing on changing your eating with food, which sounds perfectly logical and reasonable. And it's the idea that changing your eating equals focusing on what to eat and what not to eat. I think we're all familiar with this obstacle because it doesn't seem like an obstacle. If you go into your closet and try on your spring clothes and you don't like the way that they fit, or you are frustrated because your knees are hurting, or you just are not happy with the amount of weight that you've gained or the way that you're eating, it's perfectly logical on one level to have our first thought be, okay, I need to clean up my eating. I need to start eating differently, right? I need to throw out the cookies, or I need to whatever. It seems like it makes sense. Part of what I've been describing to you, though, is you're not sharpening your axe. And getting past these 4 roadblocks are going to be a lot about sharpening your axe. The block is focusing on food. The first step out of that block, the kind of success mindset that I want to teach you today, is something that if you have attended anything I've taught, you've probably heard me say before. And that is, changing your eating begins with knowing that there is a reason that you're eating. There is always a reason that we eat. Sometimes it is hunger. Sometimes it is because we are tired. Sometimes it's because we are bored. Sometimes it is because we have a situation we don't know what else to do. Sometimes we're being polite, or we think we're being polite, right? So the difference between focusing on the food and the smart kind of leverage is to know that there's always a reason. There is always a root cause for your eating. It's not, and notice it's not doing, because part of diet mentality is always telling you you have to do more. You have to be doing. What are you going to do next? The smart move, the sharpening your axe, starts with noticing. There's a reason. There's always a reason that you're eating. Obstacle number 2 is it's kind of like you get over hurdle number 1 and you know that there's a reason or a trigger. Lots of people are very comfortable saying, well, this is my trigger, or I get triggered to overeat because of stress, or when I get angry, I'm triggered to overeat, or I get triggered in these meetings. We love to use that word, right? But the obstacle number 2 is when you treat the reason or the triggers with disdain or self-judgment, or you just dismiss them. And then what happens when you do those things is you double down on focusing on how to eat and what to eat, right? So that would be things like saying, and we all do this, by the way, there's no self-blame in this. First of all, it's name calling, right? It doesn't, yes, of course. Yeah, I was busy. Yeah, I was tired, but you know what? I'm really just lazy. If I was more disciplined, I wouldn't have done that. Or I'm so stupid. I did it again. I fell in that same trap again. So blaming yourself, which is a complete dead end when it comes to changing anything. It's like psychological superpower advice number 1, knock that off because it's not helping. Or get some help with somebody who can help you knock that off. So it can look like self-blame. It can also look like thoughts that you are absolutely convinced are true and nobody's going to argue out of them. Like, well, yeah, I'm stress eating, but there is nothing I can do about the stress. There's nothing else I can do. Or, oh, yeah, it sounds great. Take some time for myself, but that just isn't possible. If you had my life, you would know. And again, I'm not making fun. I'm not judging. Our voices sound like this in our head, right? We are perfectly justified in being stuck because it doesn't matter. Yeah, there's a reason I eat, but welcome to my party. Right? There's nothing else I can do. So I'm going to be stuck in this circle forever. It can also look like being really stern with yourself. So you noticed you have a trigger, like you're stress eating, or you eat when you're overwhelmed, or every afternoon after some stressful Zoom meeting that you have, you end up wandering into the kitchen. But instead of really, well, I'll get to what the winning strategy is, but it's blaming yourself for it. So you recognize the trigger, but then you're like, okay, I'm just not going to do that anymore. No more eating when I'm overwhelmed. No more. You know what? I know I'm stress eating and I'm just going to knock that crap off. How's that working? If we could do that, it creates a loop. Do you see this? How we kind of pretend to ourselves, because this is what brains do, that we're wise and we understand and we see what's going on, but then we don't really do anything about it. And then we get mad at ourselves because we haven't really done anything about it. And we're stuck in this vicious cycle. So how to get past this obstacle? What does that look like? It looks like approaching the reasons that you're eating and what you know about what triggers you with compassion and curiosity and interest. Again, it's more about noticing and being present with what's going on than it is about jumping into doing. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again. Diet mentality is all about, you should have started yesterday. You are behind. You would never have gained this weight if you hadn't done this thing. You need to get moving. It's like you can feel it in your body when you're in diet mentality. But approaching the reasons that you're overeating with curiosity and openness looks like wondering, finding out what these things are. I'd like to pay attention. I'd like to understand, not so I can beat myself up, but because I know that when I understand this stuff, it enhances my power. I am more powerful when I understand the reasons that I'm overeating, even if I don't know what to do about them. Exploring, giving yourself permission to not know everything. Okay, I don't know everything about what I am needing when I eat. I don't know why I'm doing these things. I don't know what to do about the stress, but being open to the idea that eating is accomplishing something and being open to the possibility that you can figure it out or you can get help figuring it out. One of the power questions that you can ask yourself, which is different from telling yourself you don't know what to do, is asking yourself what you know about what it is that you need. So the first part is approaching things with compassion and curiosity and interest. The second piece that I want to make sure you hear is deciding that success lies in solving these real problems, the root cause. It does not lie in changing your eating or holding onto that pipe to keep the water in the pipe, right? Success lies in solving these real problems, and they are important even if you believe they are unsolvable or you don't know how to solve them. Don't dismiss them. That's the real underlying piece of this second obstacle. Knowing something is important is not the same as knowing how to fix it. I know it's important to get the pipe that is gushing water fixed. And I can tell you, I don't have a clue about plumbing. I would be wrapping the towel around the pipe, hoping, until somebody could come. But I also know it's important to fix the problem. And so giving yourself permission to value fixing the big problem, even if you don't necessarily know or you need somebody else's help in believing that that's possible, that is what is going to move you forward in this second stage. Third stage is the third obstacle, anyway. It's kind of related. It's buying into the explanations and the thoughts that lead you to deny what's going on in the first place. There's a lot of denial that goes on in diet mentality. And part of that has to do with trying to fit yourself like a pretzel into a plan that doesn't really fit you. And if you don't really fit, then there's either something wrong with you or there's something wrong with the plan, but diet mentality doesn't let you know there's something wrong with the plan. So the third obstacle is really buying into that this can't be changed. This is impossible. Melissa, what you're talking about sounds really, really good. And it may work for everybody else on the Zoom thing, but it doesn't work for me. And that obstacle often comes from a place that smart women get stuck in sometimes where, we are so good at knowing how to fix problems that when we don't know how to fix something, we get really uncomfortable. And in some ways, it's easier to feel competent in knowing that this problem isn't solvable than to be like, I don't know how to do this. I want you to take a minute and take a couple of deep breaths. Where do you tend to feel more comfortable in your body? Do you feel more comfortable in following a plan that seems logical and laid out? And it says, okay, now you do this and now you do this. And oh, you did bad. You have to start over. Or what is it like for you to sit with, I don't know? What is it like for you to be curious about something you really want to know the answer to that you don't know the answer to? Got one more obstacle for you. And this is a big one. I bet you every single one of us can relate to this. And it's one of the biggest obstacles that people get into when they try to change their eating. It's having one word for it is having a fantasy that if you do this thing differently and if you get to your goal, everything will change. If you can just be strict enough and hard enough on yourself, if you can just keep to the points, if you can just get to that magic number on the scale, or if your jeans fit again, everything will change. It will be perfect. Once you eat a certain way, once you lose the weight, you're never going to have a bad day. You're never going to have a day where you eat all the M&Ms. You're never going to have that nothing to eat in your refrigerator. And so you eat the thing you said you would never eat again. And when you get to that magic place, all of a sudden you're going to feel confident and you're going to feel powerful. And I think that is a thought that I know this is a thought that a lot of people really believe is true. Well, when I lose the weight, I will feel confident. I will feel beautiful. I will feel unstoppable, right? Everything will magically work. You'll know what to do in that tough situation with your boss. You'll know you won't have those fights with your partner that leave you in the kitchen anymore. And this may sound completely relatable to you, or it may sound really silly. But I will tell you that there is perfectionist thinking in just about everybody's goal until you work to tease it out of there. And what that does is it creates a huge roadblock because A, it's not true and it's not possible. And B, the path that you take to get to your goal is what the destination ends up feeling like. So if you get to the destination hating on yourself, calling yourself names, being unrealistic with your expectations of yourself, you don't magically arrive at a place where now you have compassion and you care for yourself and you talk nicely to yourself. The destination feels like the path. Diet mentality teaches us to never feel satisfied. We don't ever get to that magic place. We don't ever feel good enough. We don't ever feel like we're enough, or we're holding on for dear life and not really confident that we can do that, which we can't. This is a big one. Here's the antidote. And it sounds simple, kind of, but you will be surprised. And I want you to really ask yourself if you've done that, because the antidote is being real with yourself, not from anger, not from judgment, but from a place of compassion, really being real with yourself about what you know, about why what you've done in the past hasn't worked. I didn't try hard enough. I was just lazy. I wasn't committed. I didn't no, what was wrong? Remember, diet mentality has you contorting yourself to fit somebody else's expectations. What didn't work for you? Because just like addressing the root cause is really important, if you are not clear and honest about why change hasn't happened for you who are somebody who is perfectly capable of making changes in lots of other areas, I'm sure you've made hard changes, right? If you're not honest with yourself and open to looking at, okay, so what didn't work? What do I need to be different? Again, even if you don't know how to do it, because remember, investing in the reason something, it's just impossible to fix is a huge block. So if you can look at dead in the eye, these are the reasons that I wasn't successful last time. Do you see how that gives you some power to create something different for yourself moving forward? So those are the 4 blocks. I would love to take questions, or if people have situations they want to do some coaching on, we can do that. I do want to tell you that part of the reason we're doing this pop-up series this week is because I run a program called Your Missing Piece, which is a 16-week program, which is a combination of coaching and training to do kind of exactly what I've just been talking about. And it's a program that's open year round. But one of the questions I get a lot from people is, when does it start? When can I start? When are all the other people starting? When can I start? And you can join this program year round, but there's an opportunity coming up for a group start. And so I thought this would be a really good opportunity to be very clear and let people know that. There are lots of moving parts in the program. One of them is group coaching calls with me on Zoom. The first module, by the way, is all about embracing your power and really stepping into that and starting the process in a new way. So it's kind of like sharpening your axe. I keep wanting to say sharpening your saw. So anyway, that is a possibility. If you have a question, type it in the chat or raise your hand.
Sorry, I've never done this, so I'm not sure how to do this.
You're great. Now we can hear you.
Okay. How do I know if the program's for me or not? How do you know if you're really overeating or you just want a little more of that good food?
Is it a problem for you?
I don't know.
Why? What led you to sign up for this call?
I'm eating more than I want to, and I feel miserable once in a while.
Okay.
Sometimes I can walk away from it. Sometimes I can't. I don't struggle with overweight or anything, but I don't like being miserable when I do it. I'm like, why did I just do that?
One of the things that diet mentality and diet culture does is get us really focused on our outside appearance and on the scale and on these arbitrary numbers like the scale or clothing sizes. And what doesn't get talked about a lot is how we feel about ourselves, the beliefs that we have about ourselves, and also the inflow and outflow of our energy. So for me, you have lived inside your body your whole life. Only you can decide. I mean, there are certain things like, deadly illnesses and things that someone diagnoses you and they tell you, okay, this is a problem. If you have heart disease, it's a problem. Sure. You have to pay attention to it. But you get to decide how you are feeling and where your energy is going and how you are treating yourself is, how that feels for you. Overeating and emotional eating can be a weight problem. And it can also be an exhausting habit that nobody sees it on the outside. You look very comfortable with yourself and you act very comfortable with yourself, but you're exhausted from it. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows the toll of overeating and emotional eating except the person who's doing it.
Okay. Answered question. Thank you.
Yeah. And that goes for what you weigh too, because only you know if weight loss is a goal for you. You can want to feel more comfortable with your eating and not have any interest in losing weight, or you might want to lose weight, or you might not be comfortable at all with how you are eating and be really exhausted with all the thinking that you are doing about food and not really know how you feel about your weight because it's so tangled up with all the messages you get from other people and you're just over it, which is another reason why this idea of getting clear on what your brain is doing and getting clear on how to own your own thoughts and your beliefs is so important, so that you can decide what you want and what's important to you.
Thank you.
Good question. So I think I have another, do you want to unmute?
Sure, whatever works.
Sure. Tell me your question.
So I don't know how to put it into a question, but I know what I struggle with, and it's implementing the replacement of food with something else. Mm-hmm. And I just have no idea how to figure out what's going to be any sort of way comparable to eating food.
Okay, so what doesn't work?
Activities, I've tried coloring, and I play volleyball, so I've tried that, and I just always it doesn't go away. The urge to eat doesn't go away.
Yeah. There's a whole module on this in the Missing Piece program. I mean, we could go really deep with this because figuring out what to do instead of eating is a complex thing. And we don't always want the same thing. Most of the advice you get in magazines and things is about what I call distraction techniques. How can you keep your hands busy? Or how can you, how can you get away from it for 5 minutes so you forget that you wanted to eat? So you forget. That doesn't often work. There's something deeper, which has to do with, it goes back to that first block that I was talking about the reason that you're eating, getting clear on what those feelings are and finding, and I'm going to talk in generality. So I'm not going to be able to give you a do this thing, but I hope it will give you some understanding. And then you can ask if it does, let me know. When I look at my feeling, let's say my feelings are triggering eating. When I am able to look at my feelings with deep respect, and instead of being mad at myself that I am feeling this way and it's screwing up my eating, when I can look at my feelings with self-respect and respect for the feeling and then I can start to figure out, how can I care for myself and these feelings in ways that are not food, which is different from how can I just not eat? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Because if I can, and sometimes we have feelings that we can transform the feelings. Maybe we can figure out a way to deal with anxiety or grief or hopelessness. And sometimes we have feelings that we can't do anything about in the moment. Grief is a good one. Grief may pass. You may be able to work through your grief, but when you're grieving, you can't just snap your fingers and not be grieving anymore. You can cover it up. You could distract yourself from it. But the difference between covering it up and distracting yourself from a feeling and being with a feeling would be finding ways to comfort yourself or be with yourself while you have the feeling. Think about a child that you care about or somebody that you love. If they were having those feelings and there was nothing you could do to change the feeling, how would you be there for them? And is there a way you can be more of that for yourself? Is this helpful, or tell me where you are with this?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is helpful. How would you recommend to find that? Should I just ask myself and journal?
How would you find
To find ways that would comfort myself without eating.
Journaling is awesome because journaling connects us to ourselves. Sitting with the feeling. If we pay attention to ourselves throughout a day, if there was a way to just tune in and not tune out, we spend so much of our time not feeling our feelings and not paying attention to our feelings. So, or telling ourselves we shouldn't feel that way. We should be over it by now. We shouldn't make it such a big deal. We shouldn't be upset by it. I know that goes on inside me. I know that goes inside a lot of my clients. Tell me if it goes on inside for you guys. There is something really powerful about simply allowing yourself to feel what you feel and not feeling a pressure to make it stop or make it go away. I'm not talking about acting out or doing things with the feelings, but give me an example of a feeling that we might be talking about.
Sadness and being drained from the day.
Oh, yeah, those are two great ones. We are awful as a culture of smart women. We are awful at just being okay with being drained and tired. Think about when you're drained and tired, how much your thoughts go to either that you shouldn't be or you need to keep going. It sounds so simple, but permission to be tired is really powerful. And so is permission to be sad. If we don't block our feelings and we let ourselves have the feelings, they move like a wave. They move through us. They do not get stuck the way they do when we're trying not to feel them. Who else has a question?
Hi, Melissa. I have a question, if that's all right.
Sure.
Hi. So part of me, when you were talking about that when I'm thinner, I'm going to be happy and all of that, was like, oh yeah, I know this. But another part of me was like, oh, I don't know if it's completely true. I don't fully believe it, because when I've been able to lose a little bit of weight, I've had more energy, and that's felt like it's had a knock-on effect for, self-respect and things like that. So I'm wondering if you can just talk to that bit of myself that's like, oh, I don't want to believe this.
You don't want to believe that you won't feel any different when you lose weight? Is that yeah? Is that what you're saying? I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's less a difference of will I feel different and will I be different? And I think a lot of people deprive themselves of what they could be right now, because this is a second kind of related piece. It's often people don't feel entitled until I lose the weight, or this won't happen until I lose the weight. What you just said about energy is such a great point. There are a number of ways of eating that can either drain your energy or bog you down and, cause you to feel tired or bloated or just not good. And there are a number of ways of eating, and they're different for everybody. There isn't one right way of doing this, but it is possible to find the way of eating that maximizes your energy and your vitality. And you can do that right now, no matter what weight you are. And tell me if I'm getting this correctly. Finding a way of eating that works for you, part of that may be, I want a way of eating that makes me feel great, where I feel really fabulous. I feel really energized. I feel really vital. Working towards that is different from, I'm going to go on the starvation diet. I'm going to be hungry all the time, but it's going to be so worth it, because when I'm done, right? When I finish the cleanse, or when I finish the 30 days, or when I get to that number on the scale, then I'll be good.
Yeah, that really resonates. I really like the idea of shifting the reason that I'm doing it and the way that I'm thinking about the food. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And I think for all of you, if there are benefits that you want, energy is a huge one. Start doing what you can, everything that you can do that is doable now to maximize energy. There is a lot of success that happens when we eat for energy. How does the program work? The program it's a hybrid. So we do 3 Zoom calls a month. Those are on Zoom. There is training that when you sign up, you'll get instant access to the training. There are 4 modules of training. There's a workbook for each module. It's a combination of videos. All of it's created by me. So it's videos. There are guided visualizations for each module. And the idea is to kind of hit everything in a way that it's not about a program and here's your checklist and here are the things you need to track. Because successful change happens when you change your approach. And when you understand how your approach and your thoughts and your beliefs line up to get you where you want to go, but also line up that last piece about being honest about why stuff hasn't worked in the past. I don't work with people who are looking for something that will help them for 6 weeks. I work with people who are done doing that stuff and who are ready for something that is going to create the foundation. It's like sharpening the axe, right? Create the foundation so they can go out there and get on with their life. And so that is what the program is about. It's a lot of sharpening the saw, taking your power back. And if all your amazing energy has been aimed here and it's not working, then we need to look at what's going on. Do we need to aim it over here? Do we need to shift things up a little bit? What are the kind of tweaks that we need to make to get you where you want to go? Are you ready? Are you ready to lose your overeating and emotional eating habits? Are you ready to find a relationship with food that fits you, one that's deprivation-free? Then you need to join your missing piece. Enrollment is open, and now is a perfect time to join us. Go to toomuchonherplate.com/your-missing-piece, PEACE, or click the link in the show notes to take you there. Your Missing Piece is the program where I show you step by step. I walk you through the process of creating freedom from overeating with a unique combination of personalized coaching with me and smart strategy. You'll learn how to reclaim your power, ditch the diets, and create results that are built to last. Check it out at toomuchonherplate.com/your-missing-piece, and I'll see you inside. If you're ready to lose your overeating and emotional eating habits, and you are ready to step into a relationship with food that fits you, one that doesn't rely on willpower and deprivation, then now is the time to join your missing piece. Enrollment is open, and this is the perfect time to join me. Go to toomuchonherplate.com/freedom, or just click on the link in the show notes. Your Missing Piece is the program where I show you step by step how to create freedom from overeating with a unique combination of psychologist-designed, personalized work with me, coaching, and smart strategy. You'll learn how to reclaim your power, ditch the diets, and create results that are built to last. Check it all out at toomuchonherplate.com/freedom, and I'll see you inside.